We are less than a week out, 6 days. Actually, I guess we're down to 5. The day is over until the big Virginia statewide race and all of our House of Delegates. So hopefully everybody knows we've got a Republican ticket, we have a Democratic ticket, and we've got an independent who is also running to be governor. So this is shaping up to be one of the most amazing races we have seen in Virginia in a long time. I want to say thank you to all of our volunteers because this is what our outreach has been like so far. And this is up until today. We have sent 332,000 postcards. We have sent 479,000 text messages to Virginia voters. And we have made nearly 20,000 phone calls for a total outreach so far to 831,414 voters. Now, we have also sent 7,600 texts into Monroe County, North Carolina, or Union County, North Carolina, where we have a democracy center in Monroe, and they are having municipal elections. And we are also we're 48,000 texts away from being done texting 128,000 voters in Atlanta for the Atlanta mayoral race. And all of that, all of the texting has been since September 17th. Now, what I want to do tonight is I want us to take a look at early voting and the turnout that we are seeing among Black voters. I will point out areas of concern and also areas where we are very, very, very excited. Now, when we began working in Virginia, we had roughly 14 target counties, and we ended up expanding on those counties because we were able to get a democracy center or mini democracy center leader in Southside. That's actually very rural Virginia. So this is what we're looking at. Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax are Northern Virginia. In any election, Northern Virginia plays a huge part because so much of Virginia's population is in Northern Virginia. So when we look at Northern Virginia, this is turnout of Black voters. This is turnout where we compare the number of people who have voted early so far against the total number of registered Black voters in that county. All right, so I want you to understand what I'm comparing this to. So everybody's getting compared to the same thing, only technically the numbers might be very, very different. So in Alexandria and Arlington, we're looking at 7.7% turnout. In Fairfax, we're looking at 5.35%. Now, Chesapeake is in Hampton Roads. We're at 5,500 voters and we're approaching 13%. Chesterfield is Central Virginia, 50, it's actually 5,700 voters. I've got that 6 on the tail end. I forgot to erase. It's 5,700, not 57,000. They're at 12%. Hampton Roads, Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, 12%, almost 8, and then approaching 10. So what you're seeing is Hampton Roads, Central Virginia, Lynchburg, 9.48. That's really Southwest Virginia. And Southwest Virginia, their turnout percentages are significantly higher, almost double that of Northern Virginia. So that is in and of itself very, very concerning. But what we're hoping for is that the candidates in Northern Virginia are running a more conservative campaign and probably pressed voters to vote on election day. Whereas our candidates in Hampton Roads and Central Virginia, these candidates are being more aggressive. They're working on getting their voters out early. When we look at Petersburg, they are very notable because frequently when we look at Black voter turnout in Petersburg on a state election year, we are very, very happy to see Petersburg at 9%. This year, this election, they're already at 13%, and we still have another Saturday of early voting left. So this is what the numbers are looking like. Roanoke down in Southwest Virginia, they are working their way toward 13%. Because there really aren't other groups working in Roanoke, I had an opportunity to look at how many infrequent voters, meaning they are 1 in 3, and first-time voters had voted in Roanoke. And out of 1,755 voters, 866 were either infrequent or new voters. So Amazetta, please, congratulations. And I didn't see Reverend Denham or BJ, but I will be sending them an email tomorrow. Now, counties that were not counties that we were targeting, these are very small counties: Amelia, Nottoway, Danville, Halifax. You probably have never heard of those counties. Prince Edward. We texted them, but because of their tiny size, we didn't phone bank them, nor were they targeted for postcarding. These small, very, very rural counties, the lowest percent turnout is 16%. The highest percent turnout is 34. So we are seeing massive turnout in unusual places where we wouldn't really expect that turnout. Now, when you look at the early vote report, and this is as of October 26th, you can see that the community of color turnout is basically being dwarfed by the non-BIPOC turnout. In this slide, here are the actual numbers, so we can look. Now, we're comparing 2021, 2020 presidential year, not a real comparison, to 2019 and 2017. Those were statewide elections. However, the caveat was we did not have no excuse absentee voting in 2017 or 2019. So those numbers are much higher than 2019, but they are significantly lower than 2020. So 2020 shows us what can be done. 2021, this is where we are right now. So roughly 790,000 Virginia voters as of yesterday had actually cast their ballots. I will get updates on those numbers tomorrow. This one's very, very interesting. There are a lot of groups that have spent a lot of money in Virginia working to turn out our young voters. When we look at our 18 to 29-year-olds, we've got not quite 50,000 voters who have turned out. Now, of all the people who have voted so far, that's 6.1% compared to 2020. Our young 18 to 29-year-olds were making up 13.5%. Our numbers don't hit the 100,000 mark until we reach our older voters, 50 and over. So again, we have texted these young voters. We've got young voter phone banks going. So we are really, really hoping that by election day or on election day, these numbers get a significant boost. Now, enough of me blathering. I would like to introduce a very, very, very dear friend of mine, Mr. Steve Rosenfeld. He frequently joins us on Thursday night. And Steve and many of you may remember Ray McClendon from the Atlanta NAACP. We've actually written a little book. It's kind of a handbook on what we all did to win the Georgia election. Remember, we had to basically win in 2020 in November, and then we had to come back and do it all over again in January. So this book right now is available. You can read it on our website. It is also available for download. Steve, I would love it if you would take maybe 15 minutes and then you and I can answer some questions about Georgia and how we are looking to use this book as a guide for future elections. So Steve, wow. Take it away. Steve is like, the pressure.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh. Well, first I want to acknowledge that Gloria Tinubu, who's on this call, is one of the co-authors. And what did we do? We tried not to write something that would be wonky and boring. But so we interviewed and we tried not to have someone like me stand in between all of you folks who are doing this work and others who might want to be inspired to do this work. So what did we do? I suggested to Ray and Gloria that we interview lots of activists about everything that they did to win and organize and win in Georgia. And by the way, a lot of what people did is exactly what you folks are doing now around these democracy centers. So you may remember that Georgia was January 5th and the insurrection was January 6th. So people very quickly forgot about what was accomplished in Georgia and how it was actually done. So what we have here in this little book, and it's broken up, it's almost like a campaign manual, but it's actually oral histories excerpted in a sort of not quite linear, but peel back the layers of the onion style of, the history, how it was done, sort of the values of this form of, community-based relational campaigning. And And everything you folks are doing right now in Virginia with the democracy centers and the postcards and it's an extension of these very same principles. And what we wanted to do was make it so that people would not forget how they came together and how they actually won. Now, we're not just talking about, well, it is talking about winning the election, but it's also talking about engaging people in the possibility that maybe politics could do something for them based on their issues and not on some, high-flying cliches or over promises or any of that stuff. So basically, we put this together, and we're going to add, once the election is over on Tuesday, an afterward that talks about the impact that Andrea was just talking about. And we're going to try to build on this and take this model across the South. And initially it was called the Georgia Miracle. And Bill Moyers, the journalist, is a friend of mine. And I showed it to him about 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was visiting my parents. He said, no, that's not the right title. The right title is The Georgia Way. And when Bill makes a suggestion, I usually follow it. And he was right, because this way we can teach what was the Georgia Way, and we can demonstrate, and what that Georgia Way, by the way, is what you folks are all doing. And so, I just would point out one other thing. I mean, Gloria can talk about it and Andrea can talk about it. I feel like I don't want to monopolize your time. You know the value of talking to people and listening. First of all, you know the value of listening to people and hearing what they have to say and trying to validate that. And then they will in turn validate and respect what you're trying to do. And it's a longer conversation. It's not just putting up a yard sign and taking somebody's vote for granted. So that's implicit in all this. It's so interesting. In today's New York Times, they talk about Virginia rather. And they talk about how, and they use the same data, by the way, that Andrea just pointed to, the same target smart stuff. And they point out that 90% of early voters in Virginia this year also voted early in 2020. So who is the 10% that has not done that? And, this is a very close election. So 10% out of that 789,000 is almost 80,000. Well, Andrea will, her charts will tell you that so far in the counties that she's tracking, that, she has turned out 63,000, Black voters, about 10,000 Asian voters, and I think the numbers are a couple of days old, several thousand Latino. So they're not all necessarily new voters, but a lot of them are. And if this election, so let's say half of them or a third of them are, if this election comes down to 10 or 20 or 30,000 votes, it's the folks that you actually convinced to turn out who had not been voting before that made the difference. It will be a tipping point. Now, we have no idea what will happen, but I'm kind of hoping that actually that is what will happen. But again, I can always be wrong. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this is really where this is all at. So Andrea, if you want to ask any questions or talk about that, I'm happy to. I don't want to monopolize this because your audience, I think if people look at this, they'll recognize themselves and you'll see what you're all doing. And it's a big morale booster to see, hey, makes sense. This can be done. This is how we did it. This is it. And it's not unfamiliar. So
thank you, Steve. I would be more than happy. Steve, me, Gloria is here. If anyone has a question and you want to post it, we will post the link. I'll grab the link right now. And hopefully, yep. And let's figure out where it is.
Or if you want it, I'll find it if you want.
Oh, I've got it. I've got it. So I'll work on that. I've got the link. I am posting that in the chat. Gabe literally just uploaded it this afternoon after our 4 p.m. meeting. So opportunities for question. Here's a question. I agree the one-on-one discussion helps sway voters a lot. This is from one of our many democracy center leaders, Melissa, who is working in those rural counties. But it is tremendously time consuming to reach as many as we want to. How do we best economize our time?
Well, I can tell you what BJ told me. I wrote an article about this. I'll put the link in. It's been posted on a couple different places. The LA Progressive National Memo, which is read, fortunately, by a lot of Democratic state party chairs. They need to read this stuff. What she said to me was that sometimes you just need to get the right person who is known on that block, who will then take the ball and run with it. And that's in fact what she said she did. Quite a bit of, she spent enough time with the right people or the right person or two who then took it upon themselves, and it really went more viral on their behalf. And now, how much can that be replicated? I don't know, but that sure sounds like it makes sense to me. Andrew, what do you think?
Well, that's one of the reasons we are also moving to Outreach Circle, because Outreach Circle will give us that ability to find those influencers in the community, and then those influencers can reach out on our behalf. Periodically, you see parties talking about relational organizing, saying, we want you to talk to your friends and your family. But we've discovered in communities, there's a lot more than your friend and your families.
While you are looking, let me just say something about that. When I was covering the DNC's Rules Committee before the 2020 election, I was covering it because they wanted to do smartphone voting. And I was trying to tell them that they shouldn't try, I was writing about how they shouldn't unfurl a new practice in a high stakes election because it might screw up, which in fact it did in Iowa and Nevada and some other places. But Ken Martin, who was the chairman of the Association of State Party Chairs and the head of the Minnesota Party, was always talking about relational organizing. But what he talked about it was basically you grab your friends, a friend or a family member's list of friends or their email contacts, and you inundate them with stuff. That's so typical of the Democratic Party. It's they're thinking of a one-way street as opposed to a conversation that goes back and forth. And I think what you're talking about, and what I've heard Andrea and others talk about here, and especially in this book, is that it's a larger conversation. You might have a state like Georgia where, on a statewide level, you're able to win the U.S. Senate races. But in a lot of these municipal elections that are happening now, you're still hovering between 40 and 50% to basically get on those school boards and get in those prosecutors' offices and get in those the city councils or mayor's races in counties that are majority non-white. So what you still have the legacy local governing institutions run by people who aren't it's not representative. So that's part of what is the conversation here is that local focus, and then the expectations that trickle upward, but so that's also part of this, which is to say, that relational is a buzzword, but the details of what you folks are doing and the issues you're talking about, how you're talking to people, one of the things in the book, people said, asked what are some takeaways. A lot of the organizing in Georgia did not start with elections at all. It started during the census. And what people realized was, if we're going to be undercounted, we're not going to get resources. And a lot of the organizers realized that, the people who needed to be counted the most were hungry. And they did so they started doing these food drives. And then as part of these food drives and reaching into communities where people asked, who's hungry, who needs food, who needs, then there was part of a conversation, well, these people seem to care about us a little bit. And then maybe you can fill out a census form, maybe a little bit later, then are you registered, are you going to vote? And well, you helped us with this, let us help you with that. And that's part of what went on. And if you parachute in from out of town or out of state, you just won't see that. You won't hear about it either, because it's kind of a shameful thing. Nobody wants to admit that they're hungry. But if you're a real grassroots organizer and you know this stuff, and you know this about your community, and you know how you can be supportive, and you find the right people who can say, who's hungry on this block, and who needs to get a knock on the door with, and not feel embarrassed, but get a little bit of a helping hand. This is the kind of stuff that really, points to the finish line, which is where you are today. And trying to salvage. I mean, look, Virginia passed the most progressive voter legislation of any state in 2021, and it would be a travesty if all of a sudden you have a Republican governor who's going to veto a constitutional amendment and all this other stuff. So it all does matter, but it's hard to convince people when they're hungry and they're distracted. And so I'll back to you, Andrea.
One of the questions I saw in the chat was a reference to, let's see, it was the Black male vote. And there was the question of, from the last national election, we learned that many Black men voted Republican. 15% of African Americans in Virginia are Republican. We know that because in 2010, when Michael Steele was chair of the RNC, he invested $10 million in Virginia. Where did he go? He went directly to Black pastors, and he asked them if they had any needs that he could help with. And so churches needed new roofs. Churches needed to have floors resurfaced, all manner of things. And when you get an influencer like a pastor, it becomes easier to get the people in their circle to follow you. So yes, one of the things we know about Virginia is that 15% of Black voters are Republican. That means that 85% are not. And there is now probably, even in that 15%, maybe another 3 to 5 who really and truly are independents, but they have been ignored by the Democratic Party for 30 years. And now they're getting some attention paid to them by the Republican Party. This was the story in Florida. This was the story in Texas. I even read an article about how the Republican Party is looking at adopting our model. They're not calling them democracy centers because they've made democracy a bad word. They're calling them community centers, but the goal is to do exactly the same thing that we are doing, which is find the pain points in the community, identify them, say them out loud, and then work with members of the community on fixing this. And this was something that I learned back in 2017 when we did Alabama. And I think I'm frozen.
No, I don't think you're frozen. We could hear you and see you.
Oh, all right, excellent, excellent. Yes, I can't read any of the questions in the chat because my mouse is not frozen. So do we have other questions in the chat?
Well, Jackie St. Jones says, I have some friends coming over on Sunday to help phone text bank in Colorado. Are we going to hear what you would like us to do?
You're working in Colorado. Colorado's probably having municipal elections. So again, we are down to the wire. We do still have plenty of voters to call. And we have one more day of Saturday voting. I would love to be able to make that a big day. So we will convert our phone banks probably on Saturday afternoon to be election day phone banks, where we will be telling people where they can vote on election day. So there will be plenty of calls to make all the way up until probably 4:30, 5 o'clock on election day, because our phone banking system really does allow us, when we generate our list, to exclude people who have already voted.
And can you clarify when early voting ends?
Early voting ends on Saturday, October 30th.
So after that, they have to vote on Tuesday.
After that, they are limited to voting on election day. When they are early voting, if they live in a relatively large urban area, there are multiple places where they can vote. They can vote at any early voting location. On election day, they are limited to their assigned precinct.
Andrea, there's one other question, and I think it's what you're getting at, but Mary Claire asks, what's your opinion of what Stacey Abrams' group did about paying off medical debts? Are direct service type projects like that effective and something we should do more of?
Yes, that's exactly what we should be doing everywhere. Again, we do not have money to pay off medical debt. We've got enough money to buy some baskets of food. One of the things we are working on is the broadband project, where many rural areas don't have broadband at all. A number of urban areas, they have broadband, people can't afford it. So we have DPACS hotspots, and we have offered to come in and provide those services for folks. That is exactly what we must do if we have any hope at all of bringing back voters who have decided it doesn't matter if I vote for a D or an R, nothing in my life changes. That's why Build Back Better, the child care tax credit, and many of these things that have passed in DC are such important things.
Steve or Gloria, you can take on.
Okay. Well,
I'm back.
Oh, good.
I think we should hear from Gloria, actually.
Yeah.
Was there a particular question, or?
One of the questions from the chat was, what were some of the big takeaways you had from doing this? And you interviewed a lot of the folks, and you know all these folks, and you've been in this work for a long time.
Yeah. Well, one of the main takeaways, I believe, that the participants repeatedly expressed was the willingness to come together around a particular mission of getting people out to vote and participating at levels that they'd never done before. And so they were willing to try things that they had not tried before, and use all kinds of interesting ways of getting people engaged and involved, from doing, collard greens, kind of outings, and, getting people to just engaged and listening to what it is that people say they care about and responding to those needs. And that's something that Andrea mentioned, that, you know, people have needs in these communities. A lot of the organizations that were involved had already been working with folks around those needs. So it was an easier fix for them in terms of connecting with them, in terms of influencing them, because they had already worked with them in the past. And so that was critically important. And going to people to where, you know, where people are. I heard someone mention earlier that, you know, going door to door can be tedious or tiresome. But what people were saying is that people were very impressed by folks who had come to their door, because in the past, no one had come there before. So they were inspired to go out to vote because no one had asked them before. No one had bothered to come to their apartment complex or in their particular neighborhood. So while you might not think that you're not being impactful by going door to door, I can promise you it has a big impact on people who've never been approached before. So the other thing that was very evident was the work of organized groups like the sororities and fraternities. They were major influencers in the whole process. They had a volunteer base that was massive and known to local people. And again, they were organizations that had worked with people to help them with housing or food or other social services. And so people were confident in them and trusted them. So trust was that other factor as well. So these organizations were just absolutely amazing. And they basically unified, went to where people were supported financially by individuals and organizations that made it possible for them to go out and do the hard work where, you know, they couldn't, you know, just simply rely on volunteers alone. So it was an amazing process. And I want to, you know, thank Steve for his work on this project, and Ray McClendon for just going above and beyond, and Mike Hirsch, who videotaped all of the interviews. It was an amazing team effort. Joel Siegel as well facilitated the whole process. So a lot of lessons learned, but most of them had to do with unity, going to where people are, addressing their needs, and creating an environment of trust.
You know, yeah, one of the things you also mentioned, which was really kind of interesting, and especially is relevant for, you know, for the folks on this call and who work with Andrea, is that COVID forced younger people and older people to learn how to use technology and bridge that gap. And I don't think they have forgotten how to do that. And you saw that in ways that were really kind of surprising to me, but not, they made perfect sense to you, such as people weren't going to church anymore. So they were holding services over Zoom, but then all of a sudden you're communicating over Zoom. So you're organizing over Zoom.
Yes. Yeah. And for the young people, this was a comfort zone for them. So they ended up being more teachers, more of the teachers than the learners. They were really schooling and educating the older generation about, you know, how to access this technology that the young folks are very familiar with. And so it was a very different kind of environment where the young people were truly leading in this regard. So we had a lot of young people, particularly in Southwest Georgia, who were in the leadership roles in terms of doing the outreach, doing the get out the vote, doing the training and educating people around, you know, Zoom and texting and all of that kind of stuff. And it really forced people to really go outside of their comfort zone and embrace technology, which is a very wonderful thing, given the kind of technology that, you know, Andrea uses for, you know, all the work that she does. So I think while COVID was definitely a negative thing, it absolutely ended up having some positive aspects to it, because it forced us to operate in that virtual world and in a positive way.
You know, I can't emphasize that enough. I was a year ago, I was in Georgia covering this for Bill Moyer's website, which is now shut down because he's retired. And I remember interviewing Richard Rose, who was the president of the Atlanta NAACP chapter. And he said, I asked him, so how many volunteers do you really wish you'd have in the state to be effective? And he said, well, we had a couple hundred, we really could do something. And then he kind of, Ray hooked up with Andrea and all of you folks. And instead of several hundred, there were tens of thousands. I mean, you just cannot possibly imagine. And this is why, Ray McClendon, who really is the field marshal for the Georgia, this is why he cannot sing high enough praises for everything that Andrea and all you folks have done. It's just taken, he said, sometimes you're in these organizations and you get used to doing things a certain way and you just don't realize there's another and different and better way to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And here comes, Andrea and the center and all you folks, and you show them how to basically, go, in one step, go from the 20th to the 21st century with organizing. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. Am I exaggerating that?
I don't think you are, because just think of it. It's like exponential growth. It's like the capacity to just multiply yourself without even having to exert a whole lot of effort. Because now you've got thousands of people who can make calls from anywhere or send text messages from any and everywhere. And things are just much easier, It's a new way of operating. It really, I think it's making our politics more democratic. And hopefully that will engage more people to not only vote, but also to run and participate in public office, because they'll be able to get elected without so much financial expense if they can use the system that Andrea and her team has so aptly developed.
So thank you, for sharing all that, and I don't want to be hogging Andrea's call, but you've been in Southwest, been in Atlanta, you've been in Southwest Georgia for a long time, and it's so interesting. These are areas where the national groups that come in, and the ones that are associated with the political parties, they just take them for granted, or they don't really try. And I've seen that in state after state and year after year. And that's really, that made the difference. It all mattered, but without it, you wouldn't have had those results. And we'll see what happens in Virginia.
Yeah. Let me just correct one slight thing. I've been in Atlanta and Georgia for a long time. Shirley Sherrod is the one who has been performing, for 60 plus years, just magic down in Southwest Georgia. And as you said, Steve, certainly deserves to have, support of folks who can, make financial contributions, because they've been doing all of the work, not just the political work, but the social service work, the economic development work, and they've been doing it for a long time and have garnered a large following that was tremendously impactful in the last election. So I see that Andrea's back. Okay, great.
Yes, I'm back. We have the Fannie Lou Hamer Democracy Center down in Savannah. And when I was speaking with Iran earlier this week, one of the things that she's doing is she is distributing cell phones in the rural areas outside Savannah where people don't have any cell phones. So again, as an organizer, this is someone who, when they knock on the door, they have earned the right to ask people, are they registered? Is their registration up to date? Do they need a ride to the polls? Because when they didn't have a cell phone, she made it possible for them to get one. When they couldn't figure out how to fill out their Medicare forms, she was there helping them fill out the Medicare forms. It's really, really, really basic stuff, people. And I remember back in the old days with my uncles as aldermen in the Daily Machine, their whole job was to know what members of their community needed and to go and figure out how to get it for them, so that when it did come time to vote, people were like, yeah, okay, you know, my needs are pretty well taken care of. People care about me. So yeah, I'm going to go vote.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then I also want to let everybody know the RVG, it made it to Alabama. So our Alabama Democracy Center leaders are not here tonight. They are with the RVG crew, Christiane, Jen, and Lorna, down in Birmingham. So I will be adding our marvelous book, The Georgia Way, How to Win Elections. I will be adding that to Outreach Circle so that you will very easily be able to share it with friends and family on Outreach Circle. And then we will be adding more Alabama specific items to their circle. So we look at wanting to make sure when we are talking to voters that in 2022, we will have built that ramp, that we are interested in what is hurting you. And we will be having our local democracy centers building surveys on Outreach Circle so that when we go out and talk to members of the community, we can come back and we can see graphically what people said was a pain point, so that when we do build palm cards and our messaging, we are using the words that the community used. And then we will help the community judge how well the people who got elected did in terms of working on their issues. So people will vote, and then they will push for what they need. They will evaluate. Did they get us what we asked for? Did they even try? We don't think they tried hard enough. Maybe we need to get someone else. And that little civics lesson will help people learn and understand the importance of primaries. Because what happens in so many states is our BIPOC communities, we just don't show up and vote in primaries. And then when we're looking at who's on the ballot in November, it's nobody that excites us. We've got to get excited in March, April, May, and June. So that was my little tirade. Sorry about that. So do we have any other questions, Nancy? My computer is sort of unfrozen now. So Gloria, I am so glad you could join us. Gabe, are you in a place where you can unmute and talk about phone banks that will be coming up the rest of the week and taking us to Election Day?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's see. We've got a couple phone banks, or at least one phone bank this Saturday. And we're moving our Tuesday phone bank up earlier so that we are making the calls in time before the polls close. And we are going to be changing all of the phone bank scripts on Saturday, basically as soon as it's too late to vote early on Saturday. And the nice thing about the phone banks after that point is that we will have the polling information within the phone bank itself, the polling address. So we're going to be able to really give everyone their exact information instead of sending them a link. So yeah, we're really excited about that. That's a feature that PDI just added.
Yes, after major insistence on our part.
Yes.
So yes. All right, we've got time for one more question, and I put the link in the chat for the meeting that will be on November 11th. So do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to share my screen and take people back a little bit in history. For those of you who hung in with me, you're going to enjoy this. All right, no more questions. All right. On November 11th, I will be joined by my very good friend, Heather Booth. This is a photograph, and this is on the Action Network page where you will register. This is a photograph of a very young Heather Booth with Fannie Lou Hamer.
Uh-huh.
So Heather will be joining us on November 11th. And we are going to be talking about things like Build Back Better and what we're currently working on in Washington, D.C., and why that will be very, very important to people where we're going to be reaching out in 2022, especially voters who are beginning to or have already given up hope. Again, I always remember that voter in Alabama who said, I voted for a Republican, there's sewage in my backyard. I'm going to vote for your guy. And if there's still sewage in my backyard, the next time I vote, it'll be whoever gets the sewage out of my backyard. So voters are getting very, very pragmatic. They're saying, show me something, show me what you did, show me what you plan to do. And if I like it, I'll get on board. Don't just come out once every 2 years and tell me go vote. No, that's not working anymore.
I had a quick question. Are you also doing a webinar next Thursday to debrief the Virginia election?
Yes.
So they don't need to skip the
well, provided that we actually know who won. We may not know who won by Thursday.
Okay. So
it's going to be a very tight race. So we're going to be watching. So yes, I will do a debrief on the Virginia election, and it will be what we know at this point in time. The Virginia governor's races have been very close in past years, and this one promises to be a real nail biter.
And there's a question for Gabe. Is there going to be a guided phone bank on Sunday?
No, we do not have a guided phone bank currently scheduled for Sunday.
All right. I want to thank
Maury Edelman has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Maury. Oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let everybody, okay, you can all unmute yourselves.
We answered her in the chat, actually.
In the chat, okay. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So I think that you said that you were giving voters specific locations where to vote. And I
Yes.
was thinking all the people I call, it's very often the name is a different name on the greeting. I really have no idea who I'm talking to. So I'm afraid I could be giving misinformation, like telling them I'm not talking to who I think I'm talking to. And so I could be giving them wrong information.
It
But not
won't
if
be
you
wrong.
use the name
Yeah.
of the voter in the message.
Right. Right.
But usually, rarely do they leave a name. They leave a phone number. Rarely do they leave a name. And sometimes it's a different name.
I can answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
Gabe can answer that.
Thank you.
We are including in the message when we're giving people a specific address, that, you know, if they live on blank street, so we also have their address information. So we're saying if you live on this address, your polling location is this. So that way everyone will know if they've updated their address or anything since then, they will know that that is not actually a relevant polling location because it doesn't apply to their address.
So the message will always have their address.
Not
Right.
their
If you
whole
live-
address, their street.
Exactly.
Right.
Just something that they can identify.
Okay.
Right.
So you can
Right.
always say, I'm calling for Joe Smith on Main Street.
Right. Right.
Yes.
And then if you're Sally Smith and you live on Main Street and you live with Joe, you're like, oh, great, this is where we vote.
Right.
Right. Because we are not policing who is living with whom and who knew how to work the answering machine versus who didn't.
Yes.
Elsa has her hand up too.
Elsa, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to say, per someone, I guess Nancy asked Gabe if there were quote unquote a phone bank on Sunday, but you don't need a specific phone bank to be set up to go in via those people. You can phone anytime. It's East Coast, 9 a.m. to, is it 9 p.m. still, Gabe? So don't wait.
We're saying 8 now, but yes, absolutely. Please make calls throughout the weekend. This is an important time, and you don't need to wait till a guided phone bank happens for it.
Right. And again, we're going to rebuild our phone banks on Saturday. So we are going to wait until Saturday so that we will be able to have the software omit anybody that early voted on Friday, so that we hopefully won't be calling too many people who have already voted. And yes, on the website, if you have never phone banked with us before, there's a video right there on that phone bank page that will tell you how our system works and how you can create an account. So you can self-register. It's not like texting where I've got to manually invite you. It is self-inviting. You can go, you can register, and the moment you complete the registration page, it will invite you to log in with your email address, and then the first caller will appear on your screen.
And it's very...
yes. It is very user-friendly. I don't phone bank, but I can phone bank with this. Well, my voice is too deep and raspy. People can't understand what I'm saying and are like, what? Is this a crank call? No, I just sound like this. So yeah, let's see. And I don't know, I know there will be a number of organizations that are going to be out canvassing this weekend. I don't know if our Democracy Center folks are going to be out knocking on doors, maybe because texting is done, but depending on where you are, knocking doors may not really be that feasible. I know they've done a lot of canvassing down in Roanoke, and Melissa, probably they've done some canvassing outside because some of it is a little less rural than other areas. So congratulations again to all of our Democracy Center leaders. Amazetta.
Oh, hi, everybody. Yes, Saturday we have an event in the area where we will be handing out the palm cards and giving out the information about the child credit, helping people to understand, get over there and vote, where to go. If they want to know what their precincts are, we're going to tell them that. And then the 30th will also be a good day for us because we are going to hold another event with the Halloween. We're going to be giving out bags with the information inside.
All right, thank you. That was our Roanoke Democracy Center. So that is why Roanoke is managing to do so incredibly well in their area on turnout. Roanoke and the area of the Democracy Center, Gainsborough, was chosen because 55% of the Black voters in that area had stopped voting. They were registered, they just didn't vote. So, good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. And it's just a pleasure to serve.
Good luck, Amazetta. Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Night.
Good night.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Gloria, so much.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
I'm frozen again.
We can see it.
Right, yes, I'm frozen again. So I'm going to need one of my co-hosts to end the meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's at the very end, so. Okay. Oh, never mind. I will end it another way.